And my next very special guest is live and in living color. And at 3 minutes after 9 o'clock, President of JABEM. He is a senior biomedical research scientist in immunology working in the biopharmaceutical industry in the United States. We're always going to say it, right? Even though he's not, that's not why he's on this morning. But President of JABEM, Dr. Devon Taylor. How are you doing, Dr. Devon Taylor? Morning, sir.
Well, we're doing good, We're doing good. We almost lose our job, at defending the beaches with the beach control policy.
Yes, well, yes, don't it? I'm telling you, we're holding on, though. Ancestral guidance and protection to both of us. It is what it is. But this, it is a very serious situation, isn't it, Devon? That for umpteen years, for so long, those who stand up for rights, for equal rights and justice and human rights, that when the powers and the authorities, especially the private ones, descend on you, you're lucky you're blessed to survive.
Yeah, it's just so the Gideon go, but we're used to it, because coming back, from all over these 400 or 500 years, we're seasoned in the fight. And so the decolonization of Jamaica continues. And we're going to it this morning, to address whether or not this document is towards decolonization or liberation.
All right, so this document that you reference and that our listeners know, that if you were watching the budget debate on Thursday, and even if you weren't watching and you're reading some news stories, because some news have trickled out regarding the presentation of the leader of the opposition. Oh goodness, am I the one with the audio? Am I the one with the audio, Peter? Because I'm not seeing the audio. All right, the leader of the opposition and the prime minister spoke specifically to beach access. And the leader of the opposition, putting that on the table, the prime minister, of course. For the first time, may I say this, though, Devon, that I've been covering this for a long time, access to beach, the conversations, the debates, the marches. I've been at the forefront of a lot of them, and of all of them. And this is the first time that I'm hearing a prime minister make such a definitive statement regarding the Beach Control Act, Beach Management Act, if you will. So we're going to put that out there to say, all right, so where do we go from here, and what is in it? Did we miss anything? What does it mean now that he's made this commitment? I am not sure if I'm the one with the audio. But I know we do have the audio. I'll try and locate that and play that. But in the meantime, I'll allow you, Devon, just let us talk a little bit about your own response. First of all, tell us what you heard, what these two gentlemen say. We're going to find the audio, and also your own response to what we've heard so far. JABEM's response while I check for the audio.
Yeah, So the opposition leader, I think in his contribution on Tuesday, echoed the call. So where's this policy? Because this policy has been really talked about, for, decades. Since 1956 and before, Jamaican people never like what go on the coastline. Kick off, run off, fishermen lose them beach, hotel expand. It's been a call, pre-independence. And the political class responded, just before 1962 and 56 and create this beach control policy. So, all these decades in between, the people are called for it, are requested, are asked, them not have no rights, them want them rights. So, the opposition says, all right, so where is the legislation that you have been promising? Because they said, legislation will be tabled on the first sitting of Parliament, right? That was last year, it was actually said it was tabled only to cabinet, which means it's just within the GLP administration, not to the larger country. So by echoing those sounds, we see now Thursday, when Dr. Andrew Holness gave his presentation, he held up a document that he said he's now tabling in Parliament, to address beach access rights across the country.
All right, hold there, Devon. I think I have that, so let me go to that.
Beach access. Leader of the opposition raised it in his presentation. every administration has committed to creating a policy to ease Jamaica's access to our beaches. Today I am tabling Jamaica's new beach access policy. The Beach Control Act of 1956 and its amendments in 1973 did not adequately address beach access issues and will have to be replaced, and the new policy is the first step in that direction. The policy focuses on developing a modern, inclusive definition of a beach and definition of the foreshore, backshore, and water shelf, outlining how the government will consideration for new development approval. Madam Speaker, another element of the policy is developing a framework around investments in man-made or constructed beaches. At the time of the 1956 Act, man-made beaches were not contemplated. I mean, obviously man-made beaches have been around a long time, but it was contemplated as an endeavor in Jamaica. I think now we have to integrate that into a new framework of managing our beaches. So the policy, Madam Speaker, affirms government's commitment to ensuring that Jamaicans have access to their natural public assets in an orderly, safe, equitable, and sustainable way. Madam Speaker, we want to once and for all end any ambiguity, dispute, or any view that Jamaicans are being dispossessed and disconnected from accessing their beaches.
All right, so that was the Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, in Parliament. The policy, he says, he announced that the long-awaited beach access and management policy, will be tabled? Has it been tabled, Devon, or will be tabled?
Yes, it has been tabled. We've got this topic
in Parliament as part of the budget 2026-27 budget debate, and the policy aims to expand and improve the public access to Jamaica's beaches, and he says it will replace the outdated Beach Control Act 1956, amended 1973, which failed to adequately deal with beach issues. The framework includes a modern definition of beaches, including the foreshore, the backshore, and the water shelf, clear strategies to increase and improve public access, legislative reform to support access rights, changes to development approvals, especially coastal projects, and a framework for investment in artificial man-made beaches. And it also emphasized orderly, safe, equitable, and sustainable use of beaches. So you've looked at that, but there's also a document that. Funny enough, I thought about this morning because I think you and myself, we actually met through the airwaves the first time I was discussing this policy with Pernell Charles. I think we met a little before that, but in terms of how we literally got together on this beach access thing, was your own critique and critical analysis of this document that Pernell Charles Jr. had submitted many, many years ago, and we were having that conversation. I actually said to Mr. Charles then that Dr. Devon Taylor is texting, and this is what, and I was reading your text of that, because you were at that time saying there's a lot missing from this document. Has anything changed as far as you're concerned?
Fundamentally, no. There's no fundamental change.
Even with this announcement?
Even with this announcement, right? And it's a bold statement I'm making, but we're going to back it up when you actually examine and deconstruct the document.
Go ahead.
Right?
Go ahead.
Because, I mean, we applaud the Prime Minister still, to recognize what Jabem have been saying, that this document needs to be repealed and replaced. And he said so, right?
But he said replace, not repeal.
Yeah, him say replace, and I mean, I've seen where they're trying to amend. Now, there's a little bit of ambiguity there still, with this policy versus the Beach Control Act. I mean, what will reign supreme? Because you cannot have two documents that regulates the foreshore, only one, and the Beach Control Act still stand. But KaBu, before I kind of dive into this thing, and it's been a long night, kind of really looking at it because we've just gotten the document. I don't think we can examine this document without looking, and putting what the Prime Minister presented in his budget presentation into context. That is very important. Why is that important? It's because 30 to 35%, right, of the Jamaican GDP is connected to coastal economy, connected to beaches. And in the Prime Minister's response, all of what the Prime Minister talk about, 90% is actually projects that are coastal in nature, include beaches, include rivers, right? Include the foreshore and include the sea. So therefore, the policy that the Prime Minister is presenting must also reflect and continue to support the hotel industry through the licensing of beaches, selling of beaches, the control of beaches by the tourism industry. And we know the tourism industry crowd out every other industry and monopolize the economy of Jamaica, where tourism interests control our politician, exclude Jamaica and exploit the workers, right? Indeed, it's a plantation tourism model. So we cannot look at the beach control policy that was presented out there, beach management policy, without actually putting into context, what the Prime Minister is talking about, right? So because it's a big document, I would like to kind of put a scope on the reasoning, because
right,
there's go through everything.
So hang a sec, we'll come back to that. We're going to take a quick break. I hear you saying, Devon, that in spite and despite the announcement that was made in terms of replacing the Beach Control Act, that the budget in its entirety was a budget that's skewed and is leaning close to or totally, if you will, to a large extent, to tourism and tourism interests. And
yes.
So that how do you balance the Beach Control Act while you balance the budget? Let me take a quick break.
Expungement.
21 after 9 o'clock. Let me go straight to the a clip, just a short clip from the opposition leader at the budget debate in Parliament.
Madam Speaker, after 10 years in government, what have you done about beach access in Jamaica? More and more beaches are being taken away from the public. Our people are crying out for access to the beaches of the island. You've been dragging your feet on this issue for years. Your policy is stuck in the usual multiple announcements phase. This is announced and then it's announced and it's announced. It's a bit like that project in St. Thomas there, where it's open when it's not even, no proper infrastructure. I'm sure it's going to be open a few more times. I see some public bodies have now signed with a big smile on their face to go in there and it's not even ready. We would use the law to guarantee public access while balancing legitimate tourism and private interests. No Jamaican should be barred from the foreshore. Restoring our people's connection to our national heritage should be part of building back better than before. It's very critical.
All right. Opposition leader Mark Golding there, Dr. Devon Taylor. It's interesting because he talks about balancing the legitimate tourism interest. And this you're pointing out is the crux of the matter. So he would be faced with the very same problem, because this is not a JLP problem. This is a situation that's been going on for many moons. And whether it's JLP in power or PNP in power, and we haven't really seen any change. It's getting worse, if you will. So I'm going to give you some time, Devon, to take us through, because I know you have been scouring and going through the document with a fine-tooth comb. So I'll give you some time to tell us the discrepancies, the challenges that you see, and your own perspective on how this can be played out, or if it can, any at all, in terms of the announcement that was made. So go ahead. All right, so I'm not hearing you. I think you're mute. All right. It's not us.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny how the opposition talk about balancing, right? Because it's the same thing that the prime minister is trying to do. This is, you see, there's no balancing because the whole thing is that we lost in the beginning. When them allow the Beach Control Act of 1956 to be legislation in the country lose, right? Because them say we have no inherent right. And what I'll say here by looking at the document and the scope that we're going to discuss this morning are 4 areas we're going to touch on. So the biggest one of it is what is called qualified rights. Now the documents state that, right, Jamaicans will have qualified rights to the foreshore, right? And I want to really kind of read out what the document really says about qualified right, because it's very important that we understand that.
Go ahead.
Right? It says the unhindered right of access by the public to the foreshore, the floor of the sea, and the water column above it for recreation purposes is to be provided through the amendment of the Beach Control Act. These rights will be qualified rights, as there will be obligations by both the public where applicable licensees, right? The right of the public, the rights of the public within a licensed area will be subject to the terms and conditions of the license and the rules governing the area. Such terms and conditions of the license and the rules governing the area. Now, the such terms and conditions are to be determined by the NRCA, that is the regulatory arm of the Beach Control Act, where the rules will be determined by the licensee in consultation with NRCA, right? What does that mean? Now, qualified rights mean rights with condition. They are not inherent rights. You will not have the right to just go on a beach as you want to go on a beach, as we were advocating for unfettered and general rights. So the Beach Control Act, which never give us none, they say they are giving us some, but it's qualified, right? It will be restricted, and these rules will be now set by the hotel, the guest house, right? The villas who have the license, which there are 366 of these licenses in existence in Jamaica since 2023. So there are more now. Those people are going to set the rules as how Jamaica use their beach. So it's a qualified rights. So it's not a right at all. And I want to put this into context, because this document of qualified rights is the exact same thing that was presented in 2000 under the PJ Patterson administration, right? So since 2000 and 26 years later, we've seen an agreement between both political parties that the Jamaican people does not have inherent right to the foreshore. Jabem, right? And I know every Jamaican believe that the rights to these things, right, right to the foreshore, to the land, to rivers, to beaches, is our birthright, right? By being citizens, and our forefathers fought, win the war, and take the country, and we have a Jamaica that was born independent. Our foreparents did that in their struggle for emancipation and liberation. So we do have a birthright, which should give us, right, inherent, fundamental, unfettered rights. And the political class come now and tell us, say, these rights will be qualified rights, right? Qualified rights, and the rules of how we engage the beach will be determined by now who own the beach, right? Who own the hotel, who own the license.
This is critical, and this is critical because the extent to which these licensees are already license holders and are already denying, to a large extent, almost 99%, access to the beach by Jamaicans, the extent to which these are the very same license holder who will be participating in determining the qualified rights. To me, that in itself is a contradiction. It's a conundrum. I do not understand it. But you're saying this is one point. But then that is why we talk about repeal, because this is not a repeal,
no.
Right? This is an amendment to the Beach Management Act. All right, so that's the first thing. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's a continuation of how we've always been treated. And I need to say more on this, because the policy was explicit,
Yes.
The policies talk about.
Sorry to interrupt. So that our listeners understand what we're saying. And you're saying more on this. We're talking about the Beach Management Act, which is a document from 1950 or when. It's a colonial document, 56. And but there's also another document that you're referencing, because subsequent to the announcement, this document has been made available, which is a document that is coming from when? Isn't this the very same document that Colonel Charles Jr. Did the consultations with? This is the very same one we were discussing in what year was it?
2021.
2021.
We discussed it 21, right? It came out in 2018. But what I'm also saying is that there's a policy document that came out in the year 2000.
Which is even before that. And that 2000 document, how does it differ, if any, to the 2021 document?
When it comes on to rights, KaBu, it still add qualified rights.
All right.
That Jamaicans will only have qualified rights. And Jamaica, listen, they will now upload a document on JABEM website. You can go there and look at the tab about beach policies, and you can read it for yourself.
Can we put that up, Peter? Can we put that up on screen so we can have a read of it while we're discussing? Yes, go ahead, Devon.
All right, because in it, when them discuss about the qualified rights, what the hotel and basically the policy tells you, what the hotel will be able to determine is how many Jamaicans can access a beach at any given time. How many, the number of us, right? Or any person who have a license to the foreshore, which will be able to tell us how many of us can go there. It not stop there, so. It basically say how we dress. Right? Them can determine how you dress to come on beaches. Right? It not only stop this, so it's how you behave. Right? And it's how you dispose of waste. Now, those are 4 criteria, right? That them said the licensee, the who of the license, will be able to determine all of them things then.
How you dress?
How you dress, how you behave, and how many of us.
We need
it in there. Look on it on a goal one.
I have not read the document yet, and I will never ever say that is in there. Peter is going to put it on screen, and I look at it. I'm joking. Can you find the document? Beach access? No, it's not the beach access and management policy. Was it? It's on JABEM?
No, man. It is the beach access and management policy. I mean, I can send it to him. I can send it to
Peter. Send it to me, and I'll just shoot it to Peter, because you don't have Peter contacts, right?
No, I don't have Peter.
He does? Oh, he has it. Look here, let me take a quick break.
From the creators of Money Fridays, we introduce to you another radio firm.
Side of the Africa Forum and online founding president of JABEM, Dr. Devon Taylor. We're looking at the announcement made in Parliament by the Prime Minister, Dr. Andrew Holness, last week about replacing the Beach Management or the Beach Control Act. And the document that accompanies that announcement, if you will, Dr. Taylor has already said to us that major problems have been identified, including limited physical access points to beaches, too few quality public recreational beaches, that is long before the announcement, and fees for access to areas that should be public, loss of visual and physical access due to coastal development. These are the problems that exist. These are some of the problems that JABEM and so many others have been advocating for change on, but within the broader context of repealing and replacing the Beach Management Act. Now, we hear that it's going to be replaced. We kind of, there is a positive in the announcement. As I said before, Devon, we've never had a prime minister go that far.
Yes.
So, yes. But then there also, you have been poring over the document, looking at the announcement, going through the budget speech, and poring over the Beach Management Policy Act. Right? And finding major problems, one not least of which is the extent to which the operatives from the tourism sector will be involved in determining what access should look like, qualified access should look like. So you said there were 4 of these. So there's 1, there's a qualified access, then 2.
No, I'm saying the qualified access is based on 4 conditions.
Oh, I see
right?
what you mean. Okay.
4 conditions about how many Jamaicans can access the beach.
Right.
How they can dress, right?
So
how they must behave, right? So these are what they're the qualification. So you know have to qualify to go on a beach, right? Instead of, they just give us inherent rights, fundamental rights, right? That is where they should go.
Repeat those qualifications for us, because just so our listeners hear them again.
Right?
Yeah.
How many Jamaicans can access a beach? Right? That's one of the conditions.
Yeah.
NRCA, so these are rules that the developer, the guest house, the hotel, will make. And they will, of course, consult with NRCA, right? Around these. But how people dress, right? How you look when you go up on a beach, right? We know them always use these things to exclude our people. How you behave. You are now trying to codify behavior in the Beach Control Act replacement that you're going to put inside here. Behavior? What were they?
And who determines what behavior is? How you define that and who determines that? Is it a class within a class system, or a racial system, or a cultural system, or an African-centered system, or a European system? Who's going to determine what the behavior should be?
Absolutely. And so what you do see is the segregation of spaces, right? This is the classical old kind of an apartheid consciousness that you apply. So this is the same colonial logic as to how them use, instrument of rules and law to exclude people. So there now becomes an exclusivity for you to access and use Jamaican beaches because of this quote-unquote qualified rights. So that is a non-starter, an absolute non-starter, right? To really dealing with any kind of, real fundamental change. Because what this does, it does not disrupt the structure, right? The colonial ordering of our society. It does not do that. We know they are not going to enshrine supremacy, right, of predominantly foreign owned companies is going to make these rules, in complicity with the government, right? That will dominate I people. It will dominate we, the Jamaican people, the black working class, right? You ever tell me what kind of bath suit, how we can go up on beach, how we're supposed to look, how we behave? It's a non-starter. Now, it was something that kind of just hit you hard when you really kind of read it, and I was hoping that they would never really have the guts to tell something like this to the Jamaican people. But they did. And you mentioned something, that we have to give, the Prime Minister credit to actually bring this to the country, because now the real conversation can start, and I'm just hoping that all Jamaicans engage this and talk with them no want, because we don't want accessing Jamaican beach by conditions.
All right. What other, as I said before, you've been poring over the document, and this is a non-starter, this very first element of it. Is there anything else within the document that jumps out at you as being problematic?
Well, the Beach Control Act always have a provision in there where the property owner who owns property that adjoins the foreshore, right, have the right, to enjoy the foreshore. Right now they're telling that they add another thing inside here, that members of the public accessing the foreshore and the floor of the sea for recreation in front of private property must have due regard to the rights of the property owner to peacefully enjoy the use of his or her property. To peacefully enjoy. So they're now expanding that the big man who own a piece of land that join the foreshore. If you are use the beach and we down there play some ball and enjoy yourself, and them come out and basically say, boy, them people are make too much nice thing, right? Them are going to give him the right, and the state, the devil is in the details. What is he going to do? Call the police and say, we are make too much nice out there? So there's no this kind of, rights to land being now codified in terms of how people behave on the foreshore. I mean, the foreshore is supposed to be a liberative space. You know what I mean? That's the thing that we can't really deal with.
Is the Prime Minister in danger of making, in terms of replacing a colonial document, make it more colonial than it even is at the moment?
What I'm saying, KaBu, you cannot look at the document without looking at what was presented in Parliament. Over 22 coastal projects, move Black River, we go set up a tourist space there, so we create a bypass around Hanover, around Lucy, open up massive swaths of land, then I move the road, I think about a 1.6 kilometer in, all is going to be new coastal land. The old Harbour Lucy, a big boating harbour, Freeport in a Montego Bay, move all BPOs, light industrial thing, and create the big nail of Montego Bay. You bring in a Falmouth, we relocate in the town of Falmouth, move it all out there, tourism infrastructure. You really go into Portland, tourism infrastructure. I mean, when you really look at, well, you have to look. So in order for the Prime Minister to attract foreign investment, he must further codifies, right, into law protection of what the capitalist is going to want to invest in all these things. Right, we must protect the beaches them for them,
So
because this is what drive the tourism industry. It's the elephant in the room where nobody don't want discuss. Is that they're shifting the GDP of the country from 35% dependency on tourism to probably 70-80%. So this is all about creating the conditions that are right for investment. And we're going to talk about the next one.
But at a time also when we're facing a new world order, a new world economic order, and a World War III on our doorstep, which means that tourism is about to get a real terrible shock in the same way we saw tourism getting a shock during COVID. So that was a health shock. This is an energy shock that is about to come, that is going to impact tourism, and we're getting this at this time. So is this a Trojan horse then?
It is. You know, I mean, them do them thing all the while, to us. We have seen them where, it's like when them say we emancipated back in the day, right? And them have the apprenticeship period where we work for, years and don't get no pay. Them always kind of colonial, architecture always, and, capitalism always create ways in which you think you have rights, but you don't have none. And that's kind of like what them are trying to do. So they say, oh, you have some qualified rights, but when you look at how the policy is structured, you don't really have none at all. You know what I mean? Because everything is based upon conditions. And those conditions, we don't have a seat at the table, It's not that, okay, the conditions to access the beach is now, the community will have a discussion there. The community will have a discussion there. It's the NRCA and the hotelier who will get the license to sit down and determine these kind of things.
Was JABEM included any at all at any time in the policy document that has come, that is now being tabled? Is JABEM included? Were you included at any stage in that?
Well, when they had a public consultation, and it was, as I think it was a Zoom event, right? We engaged it. We have sent in also, what we would like to see. But we have participated, when they had all of these constitutional town hall, right? And, we tell them what we want. It's not nothing that they don't. Your program when we are on talking about beach access, the whole of them are listening to it, right? So they know our positions, right? And actually, it is not JABEM's positioning.
No, but
it is the people of the country that asked for this.
On behalf of the people, but usually we call the advocates. Groups together, and you say, and this is one of the reasons why we had Minister Pernell Charles on, because he was included in that. He was involved in the leadership on this policy document, which he promised us would be anti-colonial, but it is sounding more colonial than even the Beach Management Act. Devon, because we have just about 13 minutes, I'm going to give you the microphone, if you will, to talk about other issues that are relevant to the announcement and the document itself.
Okay. A new thing that we see inside here is man-made beaches, right? Artificial beaches, right? So what the legislation said, right, or the policy says that in relation to man-made beaches, the construction of such beaches must be authorized by the NRCA under the Beach Control Act. Additional approval may be required, including the requirement to undertake environmental impact assessment, apply the prerequisite permit under Natural Resource Regulation 1996, coastal engineering approval, planning permission from town and country, right? So what they're going to do, right, they're allowing man-made beach, right, artificial beach. Now, that is something that is going on in Jamaica. Not a lot of people in Jamaica know about it, right? You know, we have a research article, you know, in collaboration with Dr. Rachel Goff. You know, we saw it and we taught it to deep dive and look at it. Now, what this really is, you know, is just ripping out the rocky shoreline of the country. So Jamaicans should know that it's only about 150 miles of the coastline is really sandy and really classically like sandy beach. So most of the coastline, because we are 494 miles, is actually rocky edge. So again, because of how the tourism product is being positioned, we run out of beaches. We are run out of beaches in other country. So now they are put inside here so they can make artificial beach, blast out all of these rock faces, rip them out and create land out of water. Right? So this is what's going on. This artificial beach, it is a wickedness when you see what going on. And we have some pictures. I should put them up on Jabim to really show the Jamaican people what is happening, like in close to Millionaire Row in Discovery Bay, or them just take out big chunk of the rock interface, allow the sea to come in. Now we know the barrier with that provide and the protection with that provide from high you know, in energy you know, beachfront, to protect the integrity of our land.
You see, from time to time, why may you laugh after my stance on the whole climate change thing? Because I am saying that until we deal with these injustices and these the wide berth that the private sector has to create havoc on the island, and then to disturb the whole climate of the island, that until we deal with that, we cannot begin to talk about climate change. Today is World Water Day. You know, the United Nations declare it World Water Day, March 22. And I know there are a lot of celebrations all over the world and a lot of discussions regarding water. What is interesting is that the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, the Africa Union, and every other organization you can think about have come to the same conclusion that we are in a state right now in the world where we are facing global drought, where water is becoming a very scarce commodity. People are saying commodify it and make it be put it on the stock market and treat it like gold and so on. This is coming from some places in Europe. These are the conversations they're having, while at the same time in Jamaica we are either leasing, selling or giving away our water sources, whether it's salt or it's fresh. These are the discussions that I think as we go into 2027, the energy pandemic, which, you know, it's up on us. I know you're a scientist, you probably see it coming. The energy pandemic is coming. It's the same way like the COVID pandemic. Already airports are being locked down all across the West Asia. We have here in the United States, we're hearing that some flights are canceled and some airports are slimming down. It is only going to get worse because this war is escalating. So we're facing an energy pandemic or plandemic, if you will. But we don't seem to be aware of it, because when you listen to that budget, the budget presentation, not just from the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance and everybody else, no matter which side of the house they're on, you get the impression that there's nothing written inside there to absorb a shock of another lockdown of another 2 years. This time, not COVID, but energy. I know I digress, and I know we only have 8 minutes leave, but it's all
Yeah.
connected. I'm going to give the rest of the house to you, and if I
No.
start talking, stop me.
Yeah, it connected, right? It really connected, and we have put all our eggs in the basket, and we're damaging the island. We mash up the whole of the country, the coastline of the country, and we're codified that into law right now to say this artificial beach can be created, and the country, the public shall have no right to access these.
That is a critical.
All right,
That's
so
the bottom.
remember that we will lose the rocky coastline where many of us go sit down, hold with meditation, chew off a little line and fish
up
and
away.
enjoy. And the beauty of Jamaica is also part of that coastline, but it's a functional space, and they're going to terraform it. They already start, right? There was no environmental impact assessment as required. They're saying they're going to require it right now, but it's ongoing on several parts across the island, and we shall have no rights to it. So this day will now put inside the Beach Control Act a further extension of the colonial logic in terms of how capitalists relate to environment and people, right? So this is something, is an escalation as to how they look at it, right?
They've also said that I saw just a news article with I'm not sure it is IRI, I'm not sure which radio station or media house, that the way private beaches are being sold to private ownership, that there's something that's happening there. They're putting a stop to that, or it's not going to be so easy. What's the situation with that?
No, that's the next one I want to go into, is that the sale of public beaches.
Yes.
Right? Where they said public beaches shall not be sold unless approved by cabinet, which means that cabinet can sell them. But you know who's cabinet? Cabinet means the prime minister and the ministers only. It does not include the opposition, who would normally defend the people. And they're saying,
But
okay,
the
these are
opposition
going
don't normally defend the people.
well, we just have,
Not sir.
well, we have put it inside here, KaBu, right? To say that
No,
they
we
must
cannot
say,
allow you to put it in there, because the opposition was in power for 18 or nearly 19 years one at a time, when we were marching for access to the beaches, when we were saying we're losing the beaches, and the opposition did nothing. Ian Hales from Hanover, I remember, went to Parliament, raised it in Parliament, mentioned the work that IRFM was doing. Nobody not paying no mind. It depends on Hansard still. If it's in Hansard, you still can't find it. And from time to time, you have people get up and make a little statement when it seems as if it is it's somehow going to help them with whatever they do in their constituencies, but nothing has been done. I want to go back to say again, bearing in mind everything that you have said, this and I think we can hold the Prime Minister to account, and I hope he listens. All right, so he's made this commitment in Parliament. It's the first time we're getting such a commitment. All right? But it is a Trojan horse, is what I hear you say.
that's what I'm saying.
It's a Trojan horse.
Listen.
We need to hold him to it, so he has to discard that policy statement and then to listen to we the people.
Absolutely. Because the escalation right now of beach sale, it's something that, remember in the Beach Control Act, it says the foreshore and the floor of the sea is vested in the crown. All right? The man, them just slap with all of that, right? Them slap it away and say them can't sell these beaches. Them say, okay, there must be exceptional circumstances, but them still, right? But the word, listen, KaBu, it's words, powerful.
Beach Act and privatize it.
Yes,
They decolonized and privatized it.
What them say is that in regards, exceptional circumstances may include, it not say shall, and me I learn some law from Dr. Marcus Goff. When you say shall, it means that you have to consider them thing. When you say may, no, it's kind of loose. It's more like the overwater bungalow them, right? When them in Jamaica and I appropriate the sea and I take with the sea, okay? And that is also not going to be in the Beach Control Act, right? They're going to include overwater structures, as part of it. But the sale of beaches in Jamaica is a serious escalation that the government can now sell the beach. And I should say, in all of this, there is one commendation I have is that they have now applied, a more extensive definition of a beach to include the back shore. So before it was only the wet sand. Now they have brought the dry sandy area to be part of the beach. They could have gone a little bit further and just to make it fully international and include the near shore. Just as you go into the water, that near shore area is a very critical part of the beach. It should have been included, but I commend them for extending this thing, to the back shore, right? But they will be able to sell these beaches, and if that is not alarming to Jamaican people, right? The policy highlighted 67 public beaches. That's what I'm put inside here, okay? And the policies also clearly states that we only have 4.5 kilometer, which is 2.8 miles. When you calculate that, when you look at the 494 miles, it's 0.6% of the Jamaican coastline is public beach accessible to the public by permission, of course. So when we out there tell the world about Jamaica have less than 1%, and all of these people are saying, no, go so, beach over here, so beach over there, so. I mean, here comes the document that admit it, fully admit it, and now they want to sell some of these beaches. No, it is not right.
I'm going to give you a final word, because let me have you address both the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition on this latest development, Devon, directly.
I mean, and I want to talk to our people still, right?
Go ahead.
Very direct, right? The opposition and the Prime Minister, right, have inherited a problem, right, that is colonial in nature, right? It still creates a discrimination and segregation of the Jamaican people as it relates to the foreshore. It's a colonial problem that don't give us any inherent right. And the Prime Minister and the opposition, if they are serious, right, about decolonization, liberation, right, and protecting the Jamaican people, they must make sure that they slap away all of this thing about qualified rights and give Jamaicans inherent rights to the foreshore. They must give us that. We must have a lateral perpendicular movement. They speak to that the qualified right will allow for lateral and perpendicular, mean that you can walk along the foreshore, you can bathe, you can swim, and you can fish, but it's going to be conditional, and that is the problem that we're going to have, because they're also talking about these license that you must have to run these beaches, and these things must go away. But what I want to say to the Jamaican people, JABEM have been using the Prescription Act, the Prescription Law Rights Act of 1882. And that remains the only single legislation that allows us to protect our rights in perpetuity forever. It's the only one, because under that is the common law. And may I say to the people them, if we want to protect the foreshore, and if the government is going to move with this plan forward, we have to protect the foreshore through prescription right. So you must get up and you must join the resistance. You must join the struggle, because one way you can protect this thing here is through the prescriptive rights, because you've been using it for more than 20 years without nobody giving a permission. Right? So you don't need the government to come now and put in these qualified rights, further establish these license policy, hotel make the law around the whole thing, lock you out, transfer this thing and sell it, mash up the wall at the front of the beach and create this artificial beach and give you no rights. The way you protect it is prescriptive rights Jamaica. That's the tool we are using. 5 cases in the court: Liquidons River, Bob Marley Beach, Blue Lagoon, Providence Flanker, and Marmy Bay. And that's how we fight back if they move this forward. And if they don't change this, don't change it, we have to deal with that.
Thank you so much, Devon. Thank you so much. We'll bring you back again on the backside of this to see what comes out of JABEM's response, official response to the announcement by the Prime Minister in Parliament of replacing the Beach Control Act. Thank you so much, my brother.
Give thanks. Thank you.
Right. Dr. Devon Taylor there. It is time for the Mr. Bigay, and we're going to go straight to him.